He is arguably the most underrated player in the 150-plus year history of the Hamilton Tiger Cats franchise. Some might say it's because he was overshadowed by some of the teams and the game's all-time greats. When you think of some of the legendary players who wore black and gold, names like Angelo Mosca, Garney Henley, Joe Monfort, Danny McManus, they all come to mind. But this player was just as dominant as they all were. And he was an anchor during the Ticats' most glorious decade in the Canadian Football League. Welcome to the latest edition of the Fifth Quarter Show, Legends. I'm Rick Zamperin. I've had so much fun researching and putting these features together, and I hope you've enjoyed them as well. Thanks to everyone who has subscribed to this channel. And if you know of someone who hasn't yet, give them a nudge. I'd appreciate the support. Today's legend is none other than the great John Barrow. Born on Halloween in 1935 in Delray Beach, Florida, John Barrow grew up to be a hulking human being at 6'2", 255 pounds. Barrow earned a scholarship to the University of Florida, where he played as a defensive tackle and an offensive lineman with the Gators from 1954 to 56. He became a team captain and a first-team All-American in his senior season, and his exploits on the field earned him induction into the University of Florida Athletic Hall of Fame as a Gator great. But Barrow would make an even bigger impact on the game in the professional ranks. In the 1957 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions selected Barrow in the 5th round, 59th overall. But like many Americans back in those days, the lure of playing pro football for more money in Canada was quite appealing. It also didn't hurt that Tiger Cats president Jake Goddard and head coach Jim Trimble watched Barrow play in the 1957 Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, and offered to pay him $11,000 a season if he came to play in Hamilton. Well, big number 61 agreed, and he ended up staying in Steeltown for the next 30 years. Barrow became an instant force in the trenches and was named an East All-Star in his rookie season in 1957, which ended with the first-place Ticats beating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 32-7 in the Grey Cup. Hamilton was the top team in the standings in the newly formed Canadian Football League's inaugural season in 1958 and again in 1959, but the Ticats lost to Winnipeg in the Grey Cup in both of those years. Barrow once called the loss in the 1958 Grey Cup his most disappointing. After going 4-10 and finishing in last place in 1960, the Tiger Cats would celebrate their most successful decade in franchise history, and Barrow would be a big reason why. Hamilton played in the Grey Cup final in 6 out of the next 7 years, losing in 1961 and 62 to Winnipeg, and falling to BC in 1964, but the Cats beat the Lions in 1963, topped the Blue Bombers in 65, and defeated the defending champion Saskatchewan Roughriders in 1967. Barrow said the 57 and 67 teams were the best he ever played on. From 1962 to 67, Barrow was named an All-Canadian 4 times, a CFL All-Star in each of those 6 seasons, and he was recognized as the CFL's Lineman of the Century in 1967. From his rookie season in 1957 until he retired in 1970, Barrow played in a CFL record-tying 9 Grey Cup championships, winning 4. And he was nominated 8 times for the Shenley Award for Most Outstanding Lineman, winning the recognition in 1962. He ranks 5th in Ticats history with 192 games played. Many opposing players of that era would cringe at the thought of having to line up opposite of Barrow, a powerful player who rarely said a word on the field, and the just as imposing Mosca, who was known to talk to his opponents ad nauseum. A year after he retired from playing the game he loved, Barrow became the general manager of Hamilton's arch rivals, the Toronto Argonauts, and guided the team to the Grey Cup in his first season, but they lost to Calgary 14-11. He held the GM position until 1975, and the following year, Barrow was inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. After his playing days, John Barrow stayed in Hamilton and opened a popular steakhouse called The Huddle on Walnut and Jackson Streets in the downtown. He also ran a bowling alley called Sportsman's Lanes on Charlton Avenue East. Years later, Barrow closed the restaurant and returned to the U.S. to work at his son's auto parts company before he retired. Born in 1935, John Barrow passed away in Missouri City, Texas on February 17th, 2015 at the age of 79. John Barrow, who was inducted onto the Ticats Wall of Honor in 2001, is a true legend. Wow, what a legendary figure John Barrow was, and really still is. Thanks for watching the Fifth Quarter Show Legends. The next icon is going to be revealed next week, along with the newest episode of the Fifth Quarter Show Seasons. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks to everyone who already has, and I can't wait to see you again. Until then, Oski Wee Wee.